Hello?
Yes, sir, we are about to begin.
Okay, I'm just trying to get my screen on so you can let me know when I see that. Just give me a second.
So, good morning, everyone. Hearty welcome to the second day following the inaugural ceremony of ASME student chapter in Christ College of Engineering. As we know, yesterday, Christ College of Engineering, it set up another such wonderful milestone in the history of Christ. We had the inaugural ceremony, the formal inauguration of the ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers student chapter in our college. Today, the second day following, as a follow-up event of the inaugural ceremony, we are having another such wonderful event with a great eminent personality as our guest. We'll be having a wonderful talk on the topic technology trends in circular economy and sustainable market energy. And the talk will be done by wonderful personality Mr. Paul Puthenpurakkal, sir, who is the director of Sure INC Singapore. Before beginning today's session, let us have a short silent prayer. So I request everyone to remain silent for a short period of time. Thank you, everyone. And once again, let me welcome each and every one of you to the session, especially our chief guest, Mr. Paul Puthenpurakkal, sir. On behalf of the college management and the staff members, I'm heartily welcoming you, sir, to this event. Welcome, sir. Also, I would like to welcome the Executive Director of Christ College of Engineering for the John Palekara CMI, as well as the Joint Director for the Joy Payapalli CMI, the Principal, Dr. Sajeev Johnson, Vice Principal, Dr. V.D. Johnson, the Mechanical Engineering HOD, Mr. Sijo MT, sir, Faculty Advisor of ASME, Dr. Vishwanath K. Kaimal, sir, other staff members, ASME members, and all students to this wonderful event. Welcome, everyone. Now, to address this day, and I humbly invite the Executive Director for the John Palekara CMI to have a small talk on the day.
Good morning, everybody. Respected Paul Thomas Vidyathil, sir, the chief guest and resource person of today's webinar. Father Joy and the respected Principal Dr. Sajid, sir, our Vice Principal Dr. V.D. Jones, sir, and our Mechanical Engineering HOD, Sijo, sir, and our ASME coordinator, Vishwanath Kaimal, sir, respected faculty members, and ASME members, and my young engineers. I think we should read the signs of time. And engineer should make our globe better by way of our contribution. And instead of starting something that is not useful, we must see the difficulties of the society, the need of the society, and we should respond back. Then only we succeed. If we implement something and if we impose something that is not useful, we cannot creatively contribute and we cannot establish properly. Today's session is going to lead by eminent personality and a wonderful person who has worked in this area for a long time, and he made a lot of contribution in this area. So I gratefully thank sir for your willingness to come and encourage our young engineers. And I am so much confident your fruitful interaction will motivate our students, and that will give a spark for them in their engineering career. So thank you so much, sir, for coming over and making your wonderful experience that you are ready to share with our young engineers. Let us make use this experience sharing, and let us learn from him. And he told that he is ready to come over in our college, and he can make a mini project for you, so that we can ready to see what it is. And that willingness is already expressed, and probably I feel that some of our young engineers must go to country like Singapore and see what is happening there, because of that country is neat and tidy, systematic in growth and good planning, and especially in this global warming and everything they took care of. And they are very wonderfully using the technology for the growth and development of society. If you go there for 1 week at least, you will learn many things from them, and we can get a good idea. And our Paul sir is very much willing to. Okay, that is the greatness of magnanimity of his character. So thank you, sir, for coming over and encouraging our students. I wish all the best to the ASME members and our young engineers. And let us make a fruitful decision from this session. May God bless you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Father John Palika. Thank you so much. Now, a small reminder to the participants. All participants, kindly note that your microphones and videos are turned off. Also, the e-certificates, you can avail your e-certificates by filling the Google Form attendance link that will be provided at the end of the session in the chat box. So make sure that you provide the correct name in the Google Form so that the names will be printed in the e-certificates. And also we'll be having an open Q&A section, question and answer section at the end of the program about the topic, so that you can ask your questions directly to our chief guest. It will be an interactive session. That's it. Okay, guys, now moving to the most awaited time of the day. It is time to listen to the talk on the topic technology trends in circular economy and sustainable energy market. And for this, we are having such an eminent personality, a well-experienced person. He is Mr. Paul Puthenpurakkal, sir, who is the Chief Strategy Officer for Green Ants Builders. And speaking about Green Ants develops circular economy constructs with plastics and provides recycling solutions to industries and communities to divert waste from landfills. Mr. Paul Puthenpurakkal, sir, he is also the founder of Philippine-based company called Solutions Using Renewable Energy, or in short, SURE INC. SURE can develop renewable energy projects, including solar, biogas, waste to energy across Southeast Asia in the past 10 years. And we are really lucky to have such an well-experienced person, a person who is having an experience of over 20 years in the field of environment management. Mr. Paul, sir, he did his master's degree in geology from India and completed his master's in environmental engineering from Germany and did MBA from AIMS, Philippines. So that is the brief about our chief guest today. So we're really happy and proud to have you today. And I'm handing over the platform to Paul, sir, for this session.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. I don't know if you can hear me. Can I get a thumbs up? If you can
Yes,
hear
sir.
me
Yeah.
well?
Yes, sir. It's clear. Well clear.
No
sir.
echo, anything else. So I just need one more help before you go away, is to see if I can get my screen up and running. Just give me a second. And so here I just press present now. Okay. Okay, I think I get it.
Yes, sir. Your screen is presenting now. We can see it.
Okay, but I don't see what I'm presenting. That's the problem. Can you tell me what screen are you seeing?
Sir, we are having a slide, the new normal, circular economy.
Okay, that's the one. Okay, so this is the one you see, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's clear, sir.
Okay, fine. So yeah, so with that, I'll just do a brief introduction. Thank you very much, Joseph, and also thank you, Father, and the rest of the students, faculty members. Very good morning to you. Sincerely apologize for the slight delay. I had to rush back from my office because Murphy's Law, last minute, the office Wi-Fi went down. I had to come home to do the call. So that small gap from office to home caused some delay. But it is very interesting to have you guys on board today. And feel free at the end of the session, you can ask anything you want to ask, particularly from emerging trends to career guidance to whatever. And my contact details are all with you guys. Anytime you need to seek any guidance, most happy to be there for you. So before we start, I think there are a few things I want to just highlight, and that is basically some terminology aspects. When today's topic, we are talking about circular economy, and by definition, it has got nothing engineering in it. Circular is a word, mathematical word, circle, and then economy, of course, is another set of mathematics, which is basically numbers that define business in today's context, or supply demand, as you may put it. And so we might ask, what does it to do with engineering program or engineering students to say? Well, surprisingly, circular economy today is driven mostly by engineers, and globally, it is affecting or changing the landscape in which businesses are conducting its own day-to-day operations. So before we jump into it, I just want to also highlight a couple of terms. So number one is circular economy. When you see
Hello,
circular economy,
sir.
you try to type
Sorry for,
in your job there.
sir. Sorry for interfering, sir. Actually, are you presenting right now? The screen is blank for us. It's blank.
Okay, yeah, I think the screen is
Yes, sir. It's okay now. It's okay.
okay. Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Because when I go into presentation mode, I don't see what I'm presenting. Okay, I don't know. Maybe there's some issue with the laptop. But yeah, please guide me when you think the screen is different from what I'm speaking. Okay.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Okay. So what I like to call is the new normal is what the circular economy is all about today. And how does this context or how does this terminology today fit into various aspects of our day-to-day life, as well as various aspects of our business, or even if we were to take a job or a career tomorrow, how do we look at circular economy? So to understand that a little bit, we probably have to also realize what are we doing in terms of the current business, what the current businesses are, and how we are trying to transform this current business into a circular business. So to do that, I would like to present a video. It's a very short video, and I hope the video's sound comes through. So just give me a second. Okay, so I hope you can see the screen.
Sir, just now it went black.
You don't see anything now, is it?
No, sir. It's blank.
Here's an idea. What if you never had...
Now do you see it? Hello?
Yes, sir, it came back. Sir, I hope you are presenting the entire screen option, right, sir?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I am.
yeah.
So do you see the circular economy
Yes,
video?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
You can see.
Please let me know if the sound is okay or if it's
Sure, sir. Sure.
okay when I start playing.
Here's an idea. What if you never had to buy a light bulb again? Instead, you lease light, like you lease a car or an apartment. It's just one idea that's part of the circular economy. Before we can understand the circular economy, well, it helps to define the linear economy. Most organizations today.
Can you hear the sound?
Yes, sir. It's clear. Sound is clear.
Okay, good.
Both are perfect, sir.
Here's an idea. Economy. Before we can understand the circular economy, well, it helps to define the linear economy. Most organizations today operate in the linear economy, which is based on a take, make, and dispose model. So, for example, a light bulb company takes resources like glass or metal to manufacture its products. The company makes the bulb and sells it to a customer like me who uses it. Once the light bulb burns out, I dispose of it. It's likely neither the company nor I will ever see that light bulb again. For a light bulb company to make money in the linear economy, it tries to buy materials for the lowest cost possible and to sell as many bulbs as possible. This model operates as if there are infinite resources like glass or metal in the world. But you and I know that's not the case. That's why the circular economy treats materials like they're finite. A company in the circular economy doesn't just recycle products, but maintains ownership of them all along. So the model looks more like this: make, use, and return. Let's go back to the light bulb example. Instead of buying bulbs, this office in London leases its light from Philips Lighting. It signed a 15-year lease for the service and pays a fee each quarter. Philips still owns the actual light bulbs and provides maintenance and replacements when needed, no extra cost. This model gives Philips the incentive to produce energy-efficient light bulbs, and it saves the office money with fixed lighting costs. It's a radically different business model that makes companies more like service providers than sellers of a physical product. And it turns out lots of companies are looking for ways to get involved. Take H&M, one of the world's largest clothing retailers. It's working on a strategy to become 100% circular. The company collects old garments in its stores and recycles them. Since 2013, H&M says it has gathered more than 55,000 tons of fabric to reuse for new garments. Some governments are getting on board with the circular economy too. The European Union adopted an action plan in 2015 aiming to make supply chains, you guessed it, more circular. This includes everything from production to consumption, repair and manufacturing, and waste management. The point isn't just to become more green and create environmental benefits. There could be economic benefits too. One report estimated a shift toward the circular economy in the EU could increase GDP by an additional 12 percentage points by 2050. But moving from the linear economy to the circular economy also brings costs. Companies would need to redesign their supply chains and products in order for them to be used again and again. Manufacturers might be burdened when it comes to the actual logistics of disposing and recycling. A recent report found only 22% of UK companies are trying to generate value from products that are returned for reuse, recycling, or refurbishing. It's estimated the cost of transitioning to a fully efficient reuse and recycling system across Europe could be as much as 108 billion euros, roughly $130 billion. Cost is one thing. Changing people's mindsets is another. And that's what it'll take for the circular economy to go from an idea to reality for everyone.
Okay, so I hope that was kind of clear in terms of the introduction to a circular economy. Basically, we are trying to change the mindset. I'll give you a very simple day-to-day life example that most people in the city or even today, even in rural areas, are trying to grasp with. No? So we all consume a lot of waste, and we all consume a lot of food in our day-to-day life. And at the end of the food, we also produce a lot of waste. What do we do with the waste? The food waste that we produce in our households or in our canteens or different places. Of course, A lot of people are now trying to make biogas out of it. Some people are trying to compost it. But 90% or 95% of the people are basically just throwing it away. They're putting it in a plastic bag and sending it out to a landfill or giving it away to a garbage disposal facility. This is one of the fundamental changes when you talk about a circular economy from a linear economy. What happens is we have been pre-programmed, or our minds have been preconditioned to think that, what we don't need, we can put it in a plastic bag and we can throw it away. So there is no consequence other than the fact that we are being good citizens and we are trying to manage the waste by disposing of the waste. Unfortunately, that mindset has changed today, and more you would see that this whole situation around waste is becoming a value chain and becoming part of a value system where we can create more value out of it. You will be surprised. Right now, there are people who are actually making organic cotton just from milk waste. A lot of spoiled milk, you can actually convert that into cotton. So there are technologies and there are companies that are producing cotton, high quality short fabric cotton from just milk waste. So what used to be a discarded or a thrown away situation is now becoming a value creation. The second aspect of that is also the business model is changing. Like what we saw in that video, if you are a manufacturer of a bulb, or if you're a manufacturer of products that are going to be used on a continuing basis, then you might as well just own that value chain. You do not need to sell as a one-time sale. You're changing the model to a lease to own or a service model where you're going to be keeping on providing the same material over a period of time. So traditionally, when people who look at manufacturing, today they don't look at manufacturing, but they look at integrating the business of owning and operating that for a number of years to come. So in that process, when there's a change or when there is a new technology that comes in, it is also easy for this company to introduce new technologies coming into the marketplace. Another place where you can see change coming in is the water space. So you might have very clearly heard about the atmospheric water generation, where people can produce water from the air. So in my business in renewable energy, we put a lot of water generators, whether it is from air or whether it is producing water from electricity or even desalination. These used to be a machine that we used to sell before, but we do not sell machinery anymore. We only sell water. So integrating our business model is part of a circular economy thought process. And to get into that, I think I will introduce a little bit about the value chain of different industries, and then we will link back together how circular economy fits into these different industries. So I would share again. Okay, so, and this is unfortunately the issue when we don't have face-to-face meetings where we cannot see what we are the faces of the people are not seen to me, so I wouldn't know whether you guys are in line with me or not. So just give me a second. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I hope my screen is back. The new normal.
Yeah, sir, it's back.
Okay, so I like to highlight one of the things that we look at in circular economy, which is basically looking at nature itself to provide a solution for all our problems. So normally that is called biomimicry. I think some of you may be familiar with this concept. No? So nature itself provides for a lot of sustainability if you look at it more closely. So in our company, we call the green ants. This is very common. I think in Kerala, you'll get a lot of these red ants that bite when you're near a mango tree or some of the trees or even a pepper tree. You'll get a lot of these red ants. And the bite is very harsh. So why are they called green ants? Because these ants, they make their colonies. They make the colonies from the small green leaves that you get that are thrown away, or they create this into a very nice web. And this web is basically a sustainable platform for them to create their own, control against enemies or control against their attackers. So this is one of the stories we have got from nature, and we have put up our own company which is called Green Ants. And why do we call it Green Ants? Because we are putting in a whole weave of infrastructure in place that allows us to transform various waste materials into something that we can create of value.
Here's an idea.
So this we saw. So from a business as usual, where you normally see waste as being discarded, you are now coming into a business model where people are talking about zero plastic or banning plastic or offsetting all their carbon footprints. And how are we going to minimize consumption? So is plastic a bad thing? I would say today, because of the pandemic and because of what we have seen, plastic has actually saved a lot of lives. But where does it go wrong? It actually goes wrong in the behavior of how we are structuring our business model and how we are structuring our day-to-day activity. That is where it goes wrong. So the time is now to change from what used to be a mixed waste discarding to a source segregated. So everything has to be segregated, whether it is plastic, whether it is metal, whether it is glass, whether it is food waste, it has to be number one, segregated. And then instead of taking all of this waste into a very long, faraway place and treating it there, we have to find localized and decentralized solutions, which are mostly on-site. Some cases we cannot do it on-site because in a large city, of course, you cannot do it on-site. You will have to take it to a different location and do it there. But in many locations worldwide today, they're shifting from large centralized solutions to on-site solutions. And obviously, we are looking at conversion technologies that are ready for deployment. So as I mentioned earlier, there are so many conversion technologies available today that are of value to small decentralized applications. And this is where you can look at a lot of database that is available today in terms of what you can adopt and what you can create, even in small communities or small situations. I like to highlight here, when you imagine a circular economy, what comes to your mind? Basically, you can look at it from three different segments. One is a finite consumption element where things are, finite. You mean, as the word goes, if you extract a little bit of coal, or if you extract oil, or if you're taking away some minerals from the ground, you cannot put it back after you use it because it is gone. Once you take it and once you make something out of it, it is gone. And that is why it is called finite. And for finite consumption, we need to recycle, we have to reuse, or we have to reduce the usage of that. As versus, if you look at the lower segment here, it is called an organic regenerative ecosphere, meaning you can continuously keep on making what you are, consuming. And one of those is basically food waste to composting, or food waste to soil, or food waste back to food production. That is a classic example of an organic regenerative ecosphere. On the left, you see here an industrial ecocycle, and on the right, you see a community ecocycle. What is an industrial ecocycle? It basically covers the four fundamentals of an industry. From logistics, you're transporting goods, you're bringing goods, you're taking the goods back to your marketplace. That is logistics. Then you have your operations, you have service, and then you have sales. So these four activities of an industrial ecocycle, each one of this has its own circular economy. So for example, take the case of logistics. You can create a circular model within logistics by trying. If you're delivering every day of the week, you can schedule it, you can plan it in such a way that you probably reduce the supply chain, or you manage the supply chain in such a way that you have a just-in-time operation. So there are a lot of things that have been done in the industrial eco-cycle space. Why? Because it is a cost. When you have cost and when you have a business driver related to cost, industry will always adapt to it. So because it is a cost and because there is a profit or because there is a saving, you will see that in today's world, industries operate very efficiently. And this is because the last 10 years or 20 years now, a lot of the circular economy principles have already been adopted by a lot of industries. So the big boys like your Nestle or your Coca-Cola, all these guys are recycling water, they're recycling plastic, they're recycling tires. Everything that they can recycle, they are recycling. And that is because there is a cost related to it, and whatever they recycle, they will have a cost saving to it. That is a traditional industrial eco-cycle model. On the right, if you look at it, there is a community eco-cycle. So what happens in a community eco-cycle? You have only 4 basic elements. Number one, you have to have a livelihood. You have to have a business, you have to have a work, you have to go to work, or you are a student, you have to go to study. It's part of the livelihood cycle. And then you have a habitat. Habitat is your housing, is your office, is your school environment, the whole environment around a habitat model. So they have consumption, they have power supply requirements, water requirements. So just like an industrial eco-cycle, there is also a community eco-cycle that drives day-to-day consumption, day-to-day requirements. And you also have to nourish yourself. That is where your food comes in. Your food cycle, your food supply chain, and your food production, all of that comes in that model. And then you have recreation, where you have travel, you have leisure, you have your tourism, a whole bunch of things. Now, each of this community eco-cycle also needs goods and services. Like your households, they need air conditioning. So air conditioning is one of the places where a recycled or a circular economy is taking shape now, because you have energy efficiency, you have new technologies coming in to cool your space. Now you have requirements for clean air, or air filters, or virus-free machinery that will take care of your oxygen requirements. So stuff like that. So community eco-cycle also provides a lot of space for us to look at circular economy. And in the middle of that is our business model that we are trying to do right now, which is what we call a green hands circular economy value cycle. And how do we run this business model? We look at 4 fundamentals here. Number one is a disruption. Can we disrupt something that is already existing? So if you can disrupt it, you can create a new business model from it. But you cannot just disrupt something, you cannot just stop something. You have to innovate. Because you're changing something, you have to innovate that whatever you're changing into something more productive. I'll give you an example. In most parts of India today, people are making eco bricks out of plastic. I'm sure a lot of you must have seen those videos or presentations of people who are making materials out of plastic, or materials out of bamboo, or materials out of organic agriculture residue from rice straw, things like that. And they are making their own innovations, and they are creating their own impact story, meaning either they are helping housing communities, they're helping local villagers, they're keeping the oceans clean, or they're making asphalt roads from plastic and things like that. So there is an impact. And in the end, we have a shared value proposition, meaning everybody gains from that. The industry gains, the community gains, and the environment also gains from that. So I hope this is a imaginary picture. When you talk about circular economy, you can think about industries and you can specify how these activities of industries can be put into a framework, or you can think of a community level where you can try to adjust or adapt to certain things that are circular in a community eco-cycle. Now there are pathways, no? There are circular economy pathways. What happens here is basically you can talk about agriculture products or forestry, marine, food manufacturers. You have oil and chemicals, metal aggregates, energy, water systems, real estate, housing guys, or leisure and waste management, industry or municipal. All of these guys can be put on a circular economy platform. And what is the impact that they can help in terms of creating this circular economy pathway? Number one, you can reduce the carbon footprint significantly if you keep consuming less and recycling more. We all know that carbon is very important because every year, because of the temperature changes globally, we are getting more typhoons, we are getting more rains, we are getting more floods, we are getting more pandemics in place because of the shift in the whole ecology system that we are facing. So we can impact both carbon reduction as well as global temperature change if we are going to address circular economy pathways in these industrial verticals. Second, we can significantly reduce the ocean pollution that we have. Ocean pollution is not only just plastics. Ocean pollution is also food waste, is also organic pollution. And if we have more pollution in our rivers and in our groundwater, it also ends up in the ocean pollution. So we get less and less fish and less feeds from the ocean, less and less algae, and eventually we would also be contributing back to climate change because of the pollution in the oceans. We also look at sustainable development goals from the United Nations, which is basically the driving force for most countries today and most industries today to comply with a certain set of guidelines and rules that the United Nations has already prescribed. And the end goal of this, again, is basically to have a healthy environment and a healthy living space. Okay, I will quickly skip this part. Okay, when I shift my screen, I have a little bit trouble, but I'll fix it. Give me a second again. Okay, Joseph, can you tell me what you see?
Sir, your presentation is not still on, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir, it's coming now. It's popping.
Okay, so do you see the construction industry value chain?
No, sir. Now your Google Meet screen is shown.
Google Meet screen. Okay, you don't see this one. Okay. Apologize for this.
No problem, sir. No problem.
Okay, I hope it's popped up now.
Sorry, sir, it's gone. Yes, sir, it's coming. Construction industry value chain. Yes, sir, it's okay.
Okay. So what I'll do is just to quickly go through a few industry value chains, and you can see how basically, from a standard value chain, how you can turn this into a circular economy value chain. So as you can see, the first part here is a construction industry value chain where normally you have an inception, you have a design, you have tender, you have construction, then you have operation and maintenance. And then on the lower part, you can see that there is building materials, tooling, equipments, finance, utilities, human resources. So there's a whole bunch of support systems that go with this value chain. And in this kind of a model, what normally happens is it's very straightforward. You don't see much interactions in how this construction industry is shifting today. But in reality, supporting this whole industry is there is quarrying, there is supply of cement, there's a whole supply chain that brings in steel. So all of these back industries that we are talking about is driven by this real estate construction industry, where we can define standards, define green certifications and green models, which will then impact the rest of the value chain. So most of the construction industry today is actually going back into that kind of thought process, where they are affected or they are making a change in terms of how these materials are sourced and how society and government is interfering in this whole supply and distribution of construction materials. The agriculture industry, on the other hand, is also very straightforward. You have in the typical value chain, you have pre-production, you have production and processing, and then you have your distribution cycle, and then you have your retail cycle. Okay. So what happens here is you're talking about a whole shift from what used to be traditionally a straight cycle, where you have seed production and then you have the end is retail production. Now you're having a whole cyclic interface where you are breaking this down into a circular economy, and you're trying to bring back the whole cycle from start. So as I mentioned earlier, from farm to food, then it is going back from food to farm. So how do you enable that? You are making sure that at every step of this value chain, your waste is recycled or your waste is converted to a higher system or a higher form. So here there is a lot of innovation that is happening today. And number one, you'll see the smaller levels of this innovation is simple things like composting or a biogas plant which produces more electricity, and that electricity is used for drying, for heating purposes, or for cooling purposes, and it is enhancing the value chain. So before, people would worry about putting their production centers places where electricity is available. Now they don't do that anymore. Now you find farms, you find infrastructure in faraway places because they run their own electricity and their own generation using the waste that they produce in their own farms. The same applies for greenhouses or climate adaptation, because instead of having more wastage before, you produce 10 hectares of produce and 1 hectare of produce is already assumed that it will be wasted. We don't do that anymore. We produce this in greenhouses, we produce this in industrial formats, and we minimize the wastage by recycling whatever waste we have into different value products. You're familiar with rice in Kerala, and when you produce rice, you know that you get a lot of broken rice and small pieces of rice which used to be traditionally discarded or thrown away. Today there's a whole supply chain around broken rice. You know what is the biggest produce that you get from broken rice today? It's actually food grade alcohol. So there's a lot of alcohol production coming in from broken rice industry, and that has become a value chain because people have started collecting broken rice from small millers and small supply chains and putting them together into a larger setup into producing alcohol. You also have the demand for feeds, whether it is for animal feeds or whether it is for pet food. A lot of discarded materials before that it's thrown away is now going back into processing, is going back into new production lines. Even things like mango seeds are now ending up as beauty products, because the whole thrust of bringing value back to waste has been well implemented or is being fully implemented in agriculture value chain. Cement industry, I don't know if it is very clear. Later on, you will get to see these slides independently. But cement industry is one of the highly polluting industries. And basically, you will get the cement industry to pay penalties or increase their costs in terms of compliances for pollution norms and pollution control efforts. But cement industry today is one of the biggest players in terms of energy sustainability or recycling. Whatever waste you can put into the kilns, they are trying to put that, and they're working with a lot of municipalities globally to accept a lot more rubber, plastic, and other waste materials into their furnaces. So it is one of the big players that we have in our circular economy model. Clothing, you will be surprised how complex production of clothing is, and how plastic has gone into the life cycle that we have today. A lot of the things that we wear today has got a certain element of plastic and a certain element of petroleum products in that. Obviously, we have to shift it, and to shift that, we would need much more new products and new technologies to make that shift and slowly get away from petroleum products. The mining industry, of course, it's also a heavy industry and has a lot of things that we can look at when it comes to the different aspects of mining and how to introduce circular economy in mining. So I come back to the point where it highlight the fact that it is time to pivot. It is time to make a new thought process. Whether it is the food we eat in our house, whether it is a simple product that we have, it can be recycled, it can be reused, or very much it can be transformed into something else from its original shape and form that it was. And there's no other place where it is better highlighted than in the waste management industry. I think everybody's familiar with waste. If the garbage truck doesn't come to pick up your waste, it becomes a massive problem, because obviously it starts stinking, the flies are all around, and then you have a big headache of that. Waste is an area that you can do in simple steps. Even in your school, you can start a waste management program. Even in your community, you can start a waste management program. If you have a large estate, you can start doing a waste management program yourself. It starts by identifying the waste, what we call as a wax. On the left here, you see the blue dot is a wax, meaning your waste characterization study. And then you develop a hub where you start bringing this waste together and you start transforming them one by one into higher value processes. There are three types of waste that can have different value chains. Number one is organics, straightforward. Anything that decomposes, anything that is food, anything that is organic in nature falls under this category. You can produce biogas out of it. You can produce electricity out of it. You can even produce hydrogen out of it, as most developing countries today are getting into hydrogen. It is the higher form of energy, and it is much more adapted in terms of transportation fuel. And it will take 10 years for us to be in Asia to come into the hydrogen economy, but that is the trend, and that is the way things are moving as we go today. And both hydrogen, ammonia, urea, the common names that you have, they all come from organic produce and organic byproducts and organic waste materials. Recyclables. I think everything around us can be recycled, even from our broken eyeglasses to our shoes to our clothes to you name it. You'll be surprised that you can recycle almost anything and everything. It is the creativity, it is the design side, it is the mechanical components that you can bring together that allows more and more recyclability into what you do and what you use on a daily basis. And lastly, it's residuals. Residuals is things that you have come to an end of life. You have used it to the max you can. Nothing more can be done out of it. And one of the classic examples of residuals is single-use plastic. While most governments want to ban single-use plastic, it's bad for us. Let me give you a classic example. The simple thing that we talk about, the straw. A person with disability, you will appreciate a straw very much, because for drinking anything, if you get a coconut and you want to drink water from that and you have a person with disability, a straw will be the most valuable thing for that person, right? So plastic has its place, plastic has its own value, whether it is single-use or not single-use plastic. It is a matter of right behavior and right consuming practices for consumers like us to actually adapt to and make that change. So most of the waste to energy projects we talk about, most of the biofuels and most of the refuse-derived fuel, cement plants, other biomass plants, they all work with residual waste materials today. So as you can see in a waste management spectrum, if you understand your waste, if you produce a hub where you can exchange and work with waste, you can actually have a whole spectrum of goods and services that are going within this supply chain. So I'll come back to the pathways that we had before. Industries are given. You can put more industries there based on your knowledge, based on your experiences. You can put more industries out there. But all of these industries have a common value chain. Supply, operate, distribute, make new products, and have services. Our business model, as I explained to you before, is to innovate, is to disrupt, is to have an impact, and is to have a shared value. And by doing so, we would have all of these impacts that are what we're talking about in the United Nations Development Goals, or even as a community, as a responsible nation, as a responsible citizen, we would be contributing to a better tomorrow by these impact areas. I give you a brief idea of some of the products and services that we have today in the Philippines, in Thailand, in Singapore, and we just launched Green Ants in India. We just have a small setup in Pune right now, and we are expanding that into different cities in India. Step number one, we have construction materials, which is common in many places also in India. But what is different here is we have a plastic mix and we use sachets. Basically, sachets have got a metal content in that. So we have two forms of transformation here. Number one is the chemical transformation, where we have a binder. It's a chemical binder we use. It's an organic binder. And we bind the material together after shredding it and making it small, along with the concrete or along with the materials that we have. We only use recycled concrete. So the concrete that comes from demolished buildings and from old structures and old roofs and tiles, we grind that material and we make that blended with plastic into these construction materials. We have something called as eco bricks. These are like Lego. It's got a full finish model. So you don't need to paint it once you already put the bricks in place. The second is the eco cast. Eco cast is a higher strength material. You don't need to put too much steel into your structure, because this is already reinforced kind of concrete and higher strength. And then we have the pavers, which are used in most of the cities, on the sidewalks, on the roads. You can create your driveways using these pavers. The uniqueness of these pavers are because of the higher plastic content, you can have a lot more holes in these pavers, and it allows the rainwater to go into the ground. And it allows for more recharge, and the ground has got more water in that because we use pavers, and instead of putting concrete all over your roads and driveways, you can use these kind of pavers. On the right, you see the eco homes that we build. These homes are made from the materials we have. These have an insulation factor to it. So our homes are cooler in summer and warmer in winter because of the specific plastic blend that we have in these construction materials. We focus on organics. We do 4 different product lines. Number one is we produce soil. And number 2, we have a horticulture production, meaning we also tie up with agriculture farmers who will produce the food, and we will bring the food back to the marketplace in the cities. We produce organic protein from the food waste, which in case of protein production, we have to get food waste from the hotels and from the restaurants rather from the households, because there is some residual value when you look at the oil content or the protein content in the food. So we use protein flies, or the maggots that produce the protein from these leftover food waste. And lastly, we also do water production on site for most of our projects. We have a waste management segment where, as you can see, the first segment of that is to collect waste from door to door. If you are segregating, you cannot have a large truck and put everything into the truck and take it to a landfill and then see whether you can do sorting there. We have dedicated sorting and dedicated people who carry that, either a bicycle or a rickshaw or whatever means that we can do, we do that. And what we have done is we have created a system where we give a credit back to the household. So if you look at the lower line here, you can see the e-commerce platform. We got 3 different apps. Number 1 is called a green barter system, meaning you give me plastic, you can buy bricks from me. Or you give me food waste and I can give you eggs for that. So it's called a green barter system. So there is no financial transaction, but it is somehow a barter that people can start trading in and start working with. So this is an app that we have launched in Southeast Asia. We are just doing the final tuning of launching this app in India, which should be available first quarter of next year. The second app we have is Refuse. Refuse is an individual personalized app for a person. So if you don't want to use plastic in your drinking cups, if you refuse something, you get a point for that. And these points you can put together, and in the end of the year, or end of 3 months, or end of 6 months, you can transfer the points to each other, or you can trade these points for monetary value. In our case, we are actually giving away air travel, or we're giving away a lot of things which we have tied up with the large companies, and they use those points to offset their plastic requirements or plastic credits that may be required of them. And lastly, if we are working with the urban poor sector, we give them something like a credit card. So for every plastic that they exchange with us or they bring back to us, they get certain points and they can just go and buy goods and services from some of the stores that are signed up with us for this particular exercise. So as you can see, from a circular economy concept, we have actually created a business model, and we are operating now in 3 countries with about 35 centers that are actively doing exactly everything that I've shown on this particular sheet. The last mile for us is to go into the green and fuel segment, where we will be producing, as I mentioned, green hydrogen, biodiesel, and bio-CNG. This happens when you have a cluster of resources put together, and you can then claim that you have 10 tons of plastic or 10 tons of organic waste, and now you can go for a higher value business model where you can produce biodiesel, bio-CNG, or even green hydrogen. So this is in a nutshell, guys, what the value chain and what we try to do with circular economy in our own business model. Okay, and last but not the least, oops, I have to go back to this. So yeah, I do understand that the lack of eye contact or face-to-face interaction does have its limitations in this kind of a webinar. So what I've done is to leave as much time as possible for you to ask questions, and maybe it would be more interactive when we get to that level. And more than anything, as I mentioned, I'm open to questions and queries even after this seminar. We can always connect on different platforms, if you may. And if anyone is interested to visit Southeast Asia, any of these countries that we have operations in, and maybe even do internships, those kind of things are available. They're open. It will entail some cost, definitely, but it is worthwhile. Sometimes I do get a lot of students from the US, Canada, and other countries to come on board. So they do come, and it's a meaningful exercise and a meaningful event for them to, to be part of. I think the last slide was where I wanted to just highlight that. I don't know if it came on board.
Yes, sir, it came. It's on.
Okay, so do you see the thank you slide, right?
Yes, sir, we can see it clear.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I tried to cramp a lot of things into this. It is much easy for me to have a whiteboard and go with you piece by piece, but unfortunately, we don't have that luxury. So I leave you with that, and let's open ourselves to Q&A.
Sure, sir, sure. So, dear participants, we have almost reached the end of the session. So, you can drop in your queries, any questions regarding environmental science, anything. You can ask your questions directly to our chief guest himself, or please highlight yourself in the chat box so that we can, avoid the clash. So, those with some questions, please highlight yourself in the chat box so I can call out your names and you can turn on your microphones. You can ask your questions directly to our chief guest, or else you can put in your question directly in the chat box.
Yeah, I'm also reading the chat box. So so I think.
Yes, sir. We have a question.
Okay, I've got a first question about Singapore recycles sewage water into pure drinking water. Do you think such a project is possible in India, where more than so many percent of people are not having access to clean drinking water? Okay, so I think this is Rezi. Rezi, look, everything has a value proposition. The reason I highlighted the value chain is because if it is of value, definitely there is a business case and there is a solution that we can come up with. Case of Singapore, they have no natural resources, and there is a historical aspect to Singapore's paranoia about water, simply because they were part of Malaysia, and then when they became independent, they were worried that Malaysia will always attack them and stop the water supply and things like that. So even though we might say it is a paranoia, that has led Singapore to be one of the most innovative water technology countries in the world. So there are only two countries in the world that has the best water innovation. One is Singapore and the other is Israel. Surprisingly, both these countries are young countries. They were formed very 50s, 60s timeline, but they were born out of conflict. So when you're born out of conflict, especially in the water segment, you will realize that water becomes a very, very big commodity. I mean, between Kerala and Tamil Nadu, you do get water conflicts, right? So everybody wants to be very sufficient in water. This is why I mentioned earlier that one of the biggest changes in India happening today in water space is going to be the atmospheric water generation. It is an upcoming field. It has got a lot of traction. Prime Minister Modi announced that in one of his speeches. Of course, it was not taken in the right context because the way he presented it was completely a different setup. But to be very realistic about it, you can produce water from the moisture in the air. It needs energy. And if there is free energy, if there is excess energy in any industry, the best thing to do is keep producing water, and you can sell the water or you can recycle the water. For places like Kerala, where you get a lot of rainfall in a couple of months, it's a sequence. You can do rainwater harvesting technologies, then you can go into water purification technologies, and then lastly you put into place technologies like atmospheric water generation. So again, perspective of value. If it is of value, if it is, people will pay anything for drinking water, for oxygen, for clean air, and there will be a business because there is a value to be made.
Okay, so thank you, Muhammad Rasi, for that question. Others who are having some questions, please type in your chat box or just highlight your name so that I'll call out your name and you can turn on your microphone and directly ask the question to our chief guest, sir.
So Joseph, this is the fourth year engineering students, or it's the whole 1, 2, 3, 4?
Sir, it was actually open for the whole college.
Okay, understand.
But as it's Google Meet, we're having a limit to up to 100 participants. That is what happens. Sir, yeah, we have a question from Muhammad Ashik. So, Muhammad Ashik, can you please turn on your microphone? If you're hearing me.
So, as you said, am I audible, Sam?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for confirming. So, as you said, there is a value for recycling plastic or recycling anything. As a country like India or most modernly developing state like Kerala, there are many agencies or many companies are running this recycling process or small scale recycling, something like that. But when we are considering about large countries or developed countries like America or Singapore, something like that, they have most modern technologies and big companies which have a high revenue income from this recycling sector. is there a possible way in Kerala so that someone could build a highly revenue generating company only from this recycling sector?
Yeah, of course, Ashik, let's the dimensions that you also need to consider here are number one is policy. Policy is driven by government mentality or government attitude towards this whole segment. As I mentioned, we have been also misguided a lot by our previous behaviors and previous consumption patterns by either being irresponsible or just taking things for granted. Now, how does how why do I say that? For example, in Kerala, I don't see there is a single waste to energy project that is successfully implemented in Kerala. Even though the government has a certain mandate, the government has tried to do that in the past, there's a certain level of gap between policy and between what is happening on a reality basis between the ground level, the people's level, and the government level. Okay? Now, there's a classic example of what you asked. There's a bunch of guys who have set up a company called Banyan Nation in Hyderabad. These guys are ex Silicon Valley guys, and they left their jobs and they came back to Hyderabad and they set up a plastic recycling venture. What do? They help the small recyclers to create the plastic as clean as possible. So when you remove the label, when you remove the dyes, when you remove the paints and the sticker and everything, that plastic becomes very valuable because you can shred it and use it as a composite material for making new plastic. Again, it, it was from scratch, but they spent a couple of times, they built the infrastructure, they brought partnerships together, and today they are a very large, in fact, one of the more profitable, globally profitable waste management plastic recycling companies, all in a matter of 2 to 3 years' time. Okay, the the key to that is having a good understanding of the local situation. What is being produced? Who is producing it? What are the concerns with the government or with the public sector or with the private sector or with the people who are involved in this, and then creating a business model around that. It's not just enough to have a technology and put the technology and say, okay, this is the price of the technology and this is how we're going to do it. So, which is why when you look again at my presentation, when I share it with you guys, you can see the industry cycle, the community cycle, has both cycles have to be considered when you talk about a business model or a business cycle that you will introduce into this marketplace. Very often, we only look at, let's say, I will put a machine and the machine will produce XYZ and I will sell it for XYZ price and that's it. That's the business model. In circular economy, you cannot stop there. You have to have an inclusive model which brings in the customer, the end user, and even think of 5 to 10 years down the road how this whole thing would be. Because you could put up something today and tomorrow someone will disrupt you because new technology or new model has come into place, right? So it's a bit more challenging today to start something like that. It's not very easy to just compare it from a different country and say, I will put the same thing here. So I hope, in a way, I've tried to answer that question, Ashik.
Yeah, yes, sir. I have a small continuous question with that. Actually, my first year's project was actually based upon this plastic melting within a waste box, which is kept by roadside. For that, for the information collection, I sent RTA, Right to Information Act, that letter to all the government agencies and all the plastic collecting agencies. But unfortunately, they didn't have any exact information of how much plastic is producing, how much it is collected from them. And as your experience in the situation of Kerala, when will this all this infrastructure or that exact structure for this plastic collection or that waste collection um, will be okay? And what will be the time limit for a company to collect properly the waste? Actually, my question is, normally the waste are scattered all around the Kerala. If there is a exact structure for that, we can collect that waste directly to a industry. And what are the measures or what are the things we can do to make it easy directly
Yeah.
from the consumer to an industry?
Correct. It's also a bit more analytical. I don't know if there is any sociology students or students who are involved in such kind of designing data collection processes or statistics students. So there are ways to analyze baseline data and get the baseline study properly done so that you can there are some predictive models you can make and then base your assumptions on such kind of predictive models and such kind of assumptions that are available. You are following a very ideologic model where you can say, I will have RTI, I will get the information, I will rely on it. Even if you got the information, it may or may not be reliable. So a lot of this initial part of building a business model has to be an immersion process where you personally have to go out there, you have to feel, you have to experience it. Normally, when I do a database collection, I do it for 2 seasons, for the wet season and the dry season. And I do it Monday to Sunday and then another Monday to Sunday. So there is a reference because you cannot have a statistical correlation if the data is only one set of data, right? So you've got to have 2 sets of data. So it's a tedious process. There's a lot of, in the waste, remember it is a very heterogeneous input and you're trying to make a homogeneous output from that. So the complexity is there, agreed it is there, but it is not impossible. So I'll share with you some tools for this, Ashik, separately, but I'll share some tools in which you can build a business model even with information that you think is, you don't know what to do with it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mohammed Ashik, for that question. Is there anyone else with some questions? Yes, Alvin Davies, you can turn on your microphone.
Good morning, sir. I have a question related to cotton. I hope I'm audible. The production of cotton is said to require a huge amount of water,
Yes.
like a lot of water, and this in turn can lead to water scarcity in the surrounding regions. So, if you were, how will you effectively tackle the situation?
So, look, again, water recycling technologies are available. It's not that it's not available. It is a matter of cost here as to either the government, one thing about India, let me explain. In the distillery sector, let's deviate a little bit. In the distillery sector, for many years, the Pollution Control Board said that, hey, you have to meet the standards. This is the standard. Meet the standard. Meet the standard. For many years. What do you think they will do? They will pay off and they will not meet the standard. And pollution was all over the place. Why? Because similar to cotton, distillery has a very high per liter alcohol produced. There's a very high consumption of water and wastewater is produced. And this wastewater has a very high BOD, COD, which is polluting the river and the seas, and it's mess. And even if you put it in the sugarcane farming or wherever, it all creates a big mess. So ultimately, the government got fed up. And what they said was, okay, enough is enough. I'm not allowing you to discharge at all. Zero discharge. Immediately what happened, India is the largest supplier of water evaporators in the world. Wastewater evaporators. Zero liquid discharge. They call it ZLD. And then they have this wastewater evaporator technologies all over. You will be surprised. The number of wastewater evaporators in the world mostly come from India, because of the legislative push that they had. Now, to do that, of course, you need a lot of heat because it's an evaporation process. There is a lot of heat required. You need a different metallurgy because you have to have corrosion-free metal to actually distillate and get this water back to recycling. You get good distillate quality water coming out of it. In a way, it solved the industry problem, but it has increased the cost of alcohol tremendously. But industry is not complaining because people who want to drink alcohol are happy to pay additional X amount of money for that. It's a pricing problem in water recycling in most industries. It is not an impossible situation, but it is a situation where whether you want to do it or not want to do it. This is why in circular economy today, the government's intervention is very important when you talk about water recycling and enforcement of water recycling. And similar to water recycling also is the question of plastic credits or extended producer responsibility, they call it EPR. You can check it out. India, as well as many other countries, are working on EPR standards. What does it mean? If you produce the plastic, if you are a Colgate and you are using plastic in your packaging material, it is your responsibility, it's extended producer responsibility to make sure that that consumer plastic is also coming back to the supply chain. So if you consume 100 tons of plastic in your manufacturing process, I want you to pay for 100 tons of plastic recycling. So remember, there is a model that is coming into play because legislation policy is pushing the producer to pay for it. Of course, the consumer will end up paying for all of this, but it is better to share the cost of cotton water recycling across 1 million consumers as versus destroying the village where the factory is located and depleting the water source there. Right? So technology is least of the problem today. Of course, that also tells you there is room for innovation, there is room for new machinery to come in, new technology to come in, and that is what students like you should be very mindful about, because there is so much innovation happening that you will always be seeing that if you are an innovative mind, you will be the first one to get a job. Even as students, if you do projects that are a learning experience for you, that would always help in terms of your career and your next steps.
Okay, so thank you for that question, Alvin. And sir, it looks like we're having a flood of questions actually, because we were having around 130 plus live viewers through YouTube as well. But we know we're having time constraints, so now we will limit the questions to a few. Sir, if you don't mind, I'm okay if you have, you can spare a few more minutes for some questions.
Yeah, please. There's no worry. I think I read one more question, which is talking about the best way to recycle the plastic in the current scenario. It's not. I wouldn't say there is one best way or anything like that, but definitely there are a few ways to recycle plastic that is linked to your local economy and local consumption practices and local business model. So first and foremost, the cleaner the plastic, the more value it gets. Okay, so if it's a bottle, if it's a plastic bottle like your shampoo bottle or whatever, if it has no label on it, if it has got no paint on it, if you can clean it, you will get the highest value for it. Okay, because it can be recycled very easily. For me, the best, the plastic recycling has got 4 elements to it. Number 1, you reduce, recycle, reuse. Okay. Number 2, you do a mechanical recycling. You break it down and you make it from a bottle, you make a chair, or from something else, you make a hairbrush. So that is basically converting it from one form to the other form. The third mechanical breakdown is basically cutting it into small pieces and making it into a composite. And that composite goes to make new plastic, okay, a fresh plastic. The last is chemical recycling. What is chemical recycling? It is basically you made plastic from oil and you're making oil out of plastic. That is chemical recycling. So chemical recycling has 2, most common in India today is basically they make plastic oil and they use that oil in bunkers and in tractors and in some of the diesel gensets. It's not the most efficient or the best, but in India, that is the cheapest way to recycle plastic. So a lot of people are doing that. But the second way to recycle in chemically the plastic is basically to make naphtha out of it. Naphtha is the starting point of making plastic. And if you can convert the plastic back to naphtha, that is the best way of, it's forever. You can make plastic, recycle it, make plastic, recycle it. So that is, in my opinion, would be the best way to do it. Is India ready for it? Yes, there are parts of India, because to make a naphtha recycling plant, you need like 1,000 tons of plastic per day. Okay, so maybe in Western India it is possible today, but many parts of India you still have to get there over a period of time. But happy to say that India will perhaps be the first country to have the largest plastic recycling globally because of the consciousness that Indians have in terms of plastic recycling.
Okay, so also one more question. It's about e-waste recycling, asked by Abhijit Menon. He has asked about e-waste recycling. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, correct. E-waste recycling is the most lucrative business because there is, like, even if you take a small SIM card that is available in your cell phone, it has got a drop of gold in it. So if you realize that There are people who remove that gold from a lot of chemical processes and all that. But e-waste recycling has got value, and it has got a supply chain which has got a very well established price point because of the metals that it gets. It is tedious. It is tedious because you need to have a good network to collect it, but it's not impossible. Okay, if you just make sure that if you're really smart and you can connect the dots in terms of reaching out to a larger segment for collecting it and giving a value proposition, definitely e-waste is one of the best. Second to e-waste and similar to e-waste is also the automobile part market, because automobiles have got a lot of parts that are coming to end of life, and you guys have a lot of mechanical engineers. You can think of it and how to retransform these end of life mechanical stuff and plastic stuff in automobiles as well as higher value. Okay.
Okay, so we have one last question, and it's again by Mohammed Rasi. He's asked, sir, can you please suggest a green startup sector which works good with the community as well as with the government guidelines in India?
Okay, either I can make the government happy or I can make you guys happy. This is very tricky, Radhi. Of course, everyone wants to. You guys are students and you want to do the best thing, and you're very ideal minds at this point of time. However, I think don't worry too much about the government at this point of time or any point of time. As long as you are doing something for a common good and for the good of a community, government, I don't think will be a problem or a hindrance to that, because you will be doing a service to the government because they need this kind of help. Let's put it that way. We are not in a country that is rich enough to give us subsidy or give us a help to make this work. So putting it in a secondary context, especially because you are in agriculture state, I would like to point out to you very clearly that don't miss out the agriculture intervention of starting something green, because it's already a green thing that you are in a green state, but there is so many things in a green economy that can be part of a circular economy. Okay, so just think about it, that finding small ventures for a green startup which helps the agriculture economy, which helps the farmer, which helps supply chain, will be fantastic. In a simple model, I'll tell you, an American guy, and you guys can check this company out. It's called Promethane. I will share this with you, Joseph. You can share with the others later. It's a company started by an MIT guy in the US who came to India on a holiday, and he realized that in that trip, he realized that so much milk is wasted all across North India, wherever you go, also in Kerala, wherever you go, milk is always wasted because milk has a short shelf life. And if you don't store it in a certain temperature, it will be wasted very soon. Problem is, a lot of the milk processing centers don't have electricity. The milk reaches the center, but there is no electricity. So either you have a diesel genset, the diesel is always stolen or never reached there. So it is a problem. So the milk wastage in India was supposed to be 30%. Very large volume of milk wastage. This is an MIT American fellow, but it got to his heart, it got to his mind. He wanted to find a solution. It's a brilliant solution what he has come up with. Wherever there is electricity, whenever there is electricity, you charge something in a coil. It's like a small cell, and in that cell you save this energy and keep it there. And then this is transportable. You can take it on the truck when you go and pick up the milk. As soon as the milk is picked up, it is poured into a vessel. The chilling time from ambient temperature to 4 degrees temperature, it takes only a few minutes. It's a very unique method. It's a very unique metallurgy and energy transfer that they have done. This is the largest company in the world today that supplies rapid milk chillers, RMC. They've got the plant in Pune. They set up a business model. The guy went back. He raised capital. It's an American guy who did that. Nobody from 1.3 billion Indians could think of saving milk that was being wasted. You've got to be connected to your local situation, feel the pain, and find a solution. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Exactly, sir. Exactly. Correct, sir. So thank you, sir. It looks like we have almost reached the end of our questions as well. So by this, we would like to conclude this wonderful section. And dear listeners, for your information, the e-certificate link, your attendance e-certificate link is provided in the chat box. So kindly make sure you fill that in the correct spelling so that you'll be getting the correct name on your e-certificates. And at this moment, I would like to thank our chief guest of the day, Mr. Paul Puthenpurakkal, sir. As we all know, he's a busy person with a busy schedule. Still, he could find lots of time for us, and he was ready with great patience to listen to each and every of our questions, and eagerly he was answering to them. And from his talk, we could get a lot of information regarding a lot of subjects. I got a lot of information. So on behalf of the entire ASME team of Christ College of Engineering, and also on behalf of the management of Christ College of Engineering, students and staff, I heartfully mention my thanks and regards to you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, and before we part, Joseph, I just also like to tell you I'm in Pune. My house is just walking distance from Christ College in Pune.
Okay.
And yeah, I've been very active in helping students, understand this environment space as well as circular economy space. So yeah, feel free to connect with me. Happy to help.
Sure.
And thanks for the opportunity.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And once again, I'm thanking all the ASME team and the technical team for all your support. And the day 3 of ASME inaugural week, we'll be having another wonderful event tomorrow. And it will be on a interesting topic, research trends in mechanical engineering, led by Dr. Balaji PS, professor at Department of Mechanical Engineering, NIT Rourkela. So all those for the registration of tomorrow's event, the registration link is provided again in the chat box. So dear participants, kindly go through both the links. Both the e-certificate attendance link is also provided, and followed by tomorrow's registration event. Tomorrow's event registration link is also provided in the chat box. So make sure you go through those. And once again, I'm thanking you all for your presence here for this wonderful event. By this, I'm concluding. Thank you so much. Bye.